Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we extract the essential insights from a stack of sources and deliver them straight to you. Today, we're getting into something pretty wild. It's one of the most persistent, kind of provocative claims in modern hip-hop lore. We're investigating that ongoing rumor, the one that says notorious Queens crime figure Kenneth Supreme McGriff is actually the biological father of, well, superstar Curtis 50 Cent Jackson. So we've pulled together material from academic analysis, historical reports on the Supreme team, the serious stuff, plus specific hip-hop transcripts. And our mission here is really important. We're not trying to be a DNA lab, okay? We're not here to settle this definitively. What we are trying to do is investigate where these allegations came from, understand the logic behind them, and figure out why this particular story has such an iron grip decades later.
Yeah, and that persistence, that's what's really fascinating from an analytical standpoint. This whole thing, it's a perfect case study. It shows how mythology gets built in hip-hop culture, in a world that values realness so highly.
Right.
The lines between actual biography and, let's say, dramatic storytelling get really blurred. Sometimes they're even, actively exploited.
Okay, so let's establish who we're talking about, just to grasp the gravity here.
Yeah.
You've got 50 Cent global brand, everyone knows him, and then Kenneth Supreme McGriff. You really need to understand who McGriff is or was to feel the weight of this.
Absolutely. McGriff wasn't just some small-time guy. He was legendary, though. Infamous is probably the better word. Founder and leader of the Supreme team. This was a massive and, frankly, deeply violent crack cocaine operation. They essentially ran large parts of Queens, New York, through the 80s and 90s.
Oh.
His run ended eventually. He was convicted in 2007, conspiracy, murder charges involved, and got a life sentence. In terms of street cred and raw power in New York crime history, his name is right up there, top tier.
So the claim is this guy, this titan of crime, is 50 Cent's father. It sounds like something out of a movie, almost Shakespearean. But we have to stress this right at the start. Based on everything we've looked at, this claim, it's completely unsubstantiated and honestly, highly, highly unlikely. It's all conjecture, no real facts.
And what's really, really fascinating, and this is kind of the first big piece of counter evidence that throws cold water on the whole idea, is that the documented history between McGriff and 50 Cent isn't about family. It's about serious, lethal conflict, not kinship.
Right. That's the paradox, isn't it? If this was some kind of father-son thing, even a messed up one, you'd maybe expect, I don't know, some protection, some mentorship, especially given their shared world.
Exactly, I think so. But the source material shows the absolute opposite. We're talking specifically about the year 2000. That's when 50 Cent famously survived being shot 9 times. Investigative records, later reporting, they strongly link McGriff, or at least his close associates, to that shooting plot.
And the reason? It wasn't like a drug turf war or anything typical like that.
No, not according to the reports. The alleged motive was payback. Retribution.
For what?
For 50 Cent exposing McGriff and his crew in the song Ghetto Quran, Forgive Me. He apparently named names, detailed alleged crimes.
Oh, okay.
The implication there is just huge. Ordering a potentially fatal hit on someone because they exposed your secrets, that logic just doesn't square at all with being a protective father.
Not even remotely.
The relationship we can actually see, the documented one, it's purely antagonistic. It's about exposure and revenge.
Okay, so if the facts point so strongly away from any kind of family tie and actually towards attempted murder, how on earth did this paternity story get so big, gain so much traction? It didn't just appear from nowhere.
That's the critical question, isn't it? Once a story is dramatic enough, compelling enough, sometimes the facts just don't matter as much to people. Our analysis basically points to 3 distinct paths, 3 main vectors that took this really unlikely rumor and somehow turned it into accepted cultural currency.
Okay, let's break those down. Vector 1 sounds like the messiest one, lyrical warfare, classic hip-hop beef stuff.
Absolutely. Where truth isn't really the point, rhetorical damages.
Right.
So the first major public airing of this specific rumor seems to come via high-profile diss tracks. The key example is that Jadakiss and Styles P collaboration. It dropped right in the thick of their huge beef with 50 Cent.
I remember that. And that track had the line, right? The specific, really personal line that just weaponized this rumor against 50. That feels like the moment it went from whispers to, mainstream conversation.
That's the one. The line was brutal, very direct. You ratted on Preme, he probably your father.
Oof. Yeah. Just hearing it is shocking. But the mechanism there is interesting. Even if Jadakiss knew it was totally false.
Right.
Just putting it out there in a major diss track forces everyone listening to sort of consider it. It becomes part of the story of the beef, even if it's fictional.
Precisely. It turns pure speculation into a really effective weapon, and it permanently lodges that idea in the minds of hip-hop fans who are following that whole thing. Repetition, especially when it comes from respected artists in the middle of a conflict, kind of acts as a substitute for actual proof, you know?
Okay, so that's vector one, the diss track weaponization. Now, vector two, this one's interesting because it involves 50 Cent's own creative work, his movie, right? The 2005 semi-autobiographical film, Get Rich or Die Tryin. Yeah, the film tells this fictionalized version of his life through the character Marcus. And the key detail here, I remember this being talked about a lot at the time, is that the movie shows Marcus growing up, and his mother is romantically involved with this powerful, kind of dangerous figure who seems very clearly modeled on Supreme McGriff.
And this is where things get really tangled for the average person watching. Because in gangster rap, there's this constant pressure for everything to be real, right? Authentic. So when an artist uses a narrative device, which is clearly what the film is doing, it's drama, lots of viewers just conflate the fictional plot point, the mother dating this kingpin,
with 50 Cent's actual life story.
Exactly. They assume the movie's drama must reflect literal truth. So it plants or maybe reinforces this idea that, well, that kingpin character must be the father, even though it was likely just dramatic license for the film.
It's that classic mistake. Assuming high drama automatically means high accuracy. And 50, maybe unintentionally, kind of fed the rumor mill by choosing that storyline.
It certainly added fuel to the fire, yeah.
Okay, and finally, vector 3. This is where it gets. While digging into the sources here, this part feels a bit cynical. The familial claims. It's presented as more than just gossip, right? There seems to be a financial angle.
That's definitely a core finding, yes. The rumors have been actively and very publicly pushed by members of McGriff's own family. Specifically, his son, Kenneth McGriff Jr., has actually gone on record. He's talked about having this gut feeling. He points to physical resemblance, shared mannerisms. He's even suggested publicly that maybe he and 50 Cent's son should take a DNA test, to settle this public curiosity.
But the sources we looked at make it pretty clear this isn't just some family trying to find out the genetic truth. It's linked to a pretty significant demand, isn't it?
Correct. We found specific reports detailing how McGriff Jr. has aggressively demanded royalties from 50 Cent, a huge chunk, actually.
How much?
30%.
Yeah.
A jaw-dropping 30% of his royalties. The argument being that 50 Cent's whole career, his persona, it's all indebted to McGriff's legacy, the Supreme Team's history, that whole notoriety.
30%. Wow. Okay, that completely changes the perspective, doesn't it?
It really does.
It shifts the whole thing from maybe we're related to something that looks a lot more like a calculated play for money and maybe reputation, using this juicy rumor as leverage. That's astonishingly opportunistic.
It certainly makes you interpret the motives differently, yeah. The claim suddenly seems to serve a very tangible external purpose, trying to connect the McGriff family name financially to 50 Cent's huge success.
Okay, so we've looked at the three vectors: the diss track attack, the movie confusion, and these financially motivated family claims. Let's step back now for the reality check. What's 50 Cent's actual verifiable position on all this? Has he addressed it?
Oh, yeah. 50 Cent has publicly and repeatedly denied these allegations flat out. He's specifically warned people about taking his art too literally. He's basically said, hey, don't confuse the drama in the movie with my actual life.
And he's pushed back on those royalty demands, too, recently.
Yes. He pretty much dismissed them. He argued that McGriff isn't that well known outside of certain parts of New York, suggesting the whole thing is just an opportunistic grab based on, well, leveraging a public misunderstanding. So when you put it all together, the total lack of any credible public proof, no DNA, no successful lawsuit, and then you add in that really clear, documented, lethal antagonism, the paternity claim just doesn't hold up. It kind of collapses under the weight of the actual evidence.
But despite all of that, the story just keeps going. It lingers. And this is where it gets really fascinating, I think. Why? Why does a rumor that seems so incredibly unlikely continue to thrive?
Yeah, why does it stick around? It seems to persist because it taps into several really powerful cultural things. First, just the sheer appeal of the lore, the myth itself. Hip-hop culture often thrives on conspiracy theories, right? On hidden truths, secret connections behind the scenes.
Yeah.
The idea that this massive star is secretly the son of this legendary crime boss, that's just an irresistible narrative. It's dramatic.
It's definitely more compelling than the likely truth.
Absolutely. Second, it's that idea we touched on earlier. Repetition starts to sound like credibility. Social media, interviews, music. the rumor gets repeated constantly. And as people hear it over and over, even if they dismissed it at first, the sheer volume gives it this kind of veneer of legitimacy.
And crucially, there's no definitive public shutdown, is there? Like, there isn't a public DNA test result floating around. And frankly, why should 50 Cent feel he has to provide one just because of a rumor?
Exactly. So in the absence of that absolute public refutation, some people treat it as unproven, but hey, not disproven either. It just hangs there in this speculative space, keeping the myth alive.
Keeps people searching, talking about it.
And finally, there's the clear potential function of narrative control. For McGriff's descendants, linking their name to a figure like 50 Cent could be seen as an attempt to boost the prestige, the influence of the McGriff legacy. And, as that 30% demand clearly shows, maybe create some future financial leverage based purely on that association, whether it's real or not.
So this deep dive, it really confirms that this whole McGriff 50 Cent paternity thing is, well, highly improbable. It seems to rest almost entirely on diss track insults, movie misinterpretations, and maybe some family intuition mixed with a very clear financial motive, not on actual verifiable facts.
Yeah, at the end of the day, this case seems much less about actual genetics and far more about symbolic power, about legacy building. It really highlights that incredibly porous line between fact and fiction in modern celebrity culture, especially in hip-hop. It shows how powerful a really dramatic story, particularly one involving crime, power, rivalry, can be in shaping identity and public perception, completely regardless of the truth.
Which leaves us with maybe a final provocative thought for you to chew on. If the lie tells a much better story, a more compelling story, maybe even a more profitable story than the truth, does the actual truth even matter anymore in the world of hip-hop mythology? Keep digging, and we'll catch you next time.